Part 1. The Whisper in the Woods. In the secluded woods surrounding Lake Eldridge, there nestled a string of summer cottages that were the epitome of rural charm and tranquility. Families would retreat here during the warmer months, basking in the serenity of nature and the simple joys of countryside living. But as the sun dipped below the horizon and the shadows of the trees stretched long and sinister, an unspoken fear gripped the hearts of the Eldridge locals. Rumors had long circulated about a creature known as Mickey Mouse, a being that was half man, half mouse, with a stature no taller than a dwarf. This grotesque figure was said to roam the woods at night, its presence marked by a chilling, high-pitched whistle that echoed between the trees. The legend of Mickey Mouse was as old as the woods themselves, passed down through generations. It was said that the creature harbored a malevolent spirit, driven by a ravenous hunger that could only be sated by the life force of the living. On one fateful summer evening, the Carter family, blissfully unaware of the local folklore, arrived at their lakeside cottage for a weekend getaway. The family, consisting of John and Eliza Carter, and their 2 young children, Lily and Max, were eager to escape the city's hustle and bustle. As night fell, the family settled in, the children's laughter filling the cozy cottage. Outside, the woods seemed to come alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures, a natural symphony that lulled them into a sense of security. But as the clock struck midnight, a faint whistling sound pierced the night air. It was an eerie, melancholic tune that seemed to drift on the wind, coming from deep within the woods. John, curious and slightly unnerved, peered out of the window, but saw nothing beyond the darkness and the dense thicket of trees. The family eventually drifted to sleep, unaware of the eyes that watched their cottage from the shadowy depths of the forest. Mickey Mouse, drawn by the warmth of life and the scent of human presence, crept closer, its form barely discernible in the moonlight. It was said that the creature was once a man, cursed by a witch who dwelt in the woods. His transformation into a mouse-like wraith was a punishment for his greed and cruelty, dooming him to an eternity of hunger and solitude. As the night deepened, the eerie whistling grew louder, now accompanied by the soft scuttling of clawed feet on the forest floor. Inside the cottage, Lily, the youngest, stirred in her sleep, a sense of unease creeping into her dreams. The creature reached the cottage, its twisted form silhouetted against the moonlit sky. It moved with an unnatural agility, climbing the walls to peer through the windows, its beady eyes fixated on the sleeping family. Tonight, Mickey Mouse had chosen its prey. The curse that bound it to this wretched existence compelled it to feed, to drain the life from those who dared to encroach upon its domain. As the first light of dawn approached, the creature retreated into the woods, leaving behind a heavy silence that hung over the cottage like a shroud. The Carters, oblivious to the night's events, awoke to a new day, unaware of the horror that lurked in the whispering woods of Lake Eldridge. And so, the legend of Mickey Mouse continued, a tale of terror whispered around campfires, a sinister presence that haunted the idyllic landscape, waiting for the night to fall once more. Part 2. The Night's Grasp. As the sun set once again over Lake Eldridge, a palpable tension hung in the air, almost as if the woods themselves were holding their breath. The Carter family, still oblivious to the lurking terror, planned to spend their evening by the lake, enjoying a family barbecue. John had just lit the grill, and the children were playing near the water's edge when Eliza felt a sudden chill, despite the warmth of the summer evening. She glanced around, her eyes drawn to the dense tree line. For a moment, she thought she saw something move, a fleeting shadow that disappeared as quickly as it appeared. As darkness enveloped the woods, the family gathered around the fire, the flickering flames casting a cozy glow. The eerie whistling that had unsettled John the night before was absent, replaced by the comforting sounds of nature and the soft murmur of his family's laughter. However, deep within the woods, Mickey Mouse stirred, awakened by the sounds of life and merriment. Its hunger, unfulfilled from the previous night, had grown insatiable. The creature's twisted form moved silently through the underbrush, its beady eyes fixed on the flickering lights of the cottage. Back at the cottage, as the night progressed, Lily, the youngest, began to feel uneasy. She clung to her mother, her eyes darting to the woods. She whispered to Eliza, "Mommy, I hear something whistling." Eliza, trying to ease her daughter's fears, dismissed it as just the wind. But deep down, a cold dread had begun to settle in her heart. As the family retired to the cottage, Eliza found herself glancing back at the looming woods, the feeling of being watched growing stronger. In the dead of night, the eerie whistling returned, a haunting melody that seemed to dance with the wind. John, now alert and concerned, peered through the window, straining his eyes to see through the darkness. But the woods gave away no secrets, hiding whatever lurked within their depths. Inside the cottage, the family lay asleep, unaware of the creeping horror that was drawing near. Mickey Mouse, driven by a cursed existence, approached the cottage, its form grotesque and unnatural, a blend of man and mouse. The creature's movements were silent, belying its grotesque appearance. It reached the cottage and began to circle it, searching for a way in. Its fingers, long and clawed, scraped against the wooden walls, leaving behind faint, sinister markings. Max, the older child, awoke to a strange scratching sound. His heart pounding, he got out of bed and tiptoed to the window. As he peered out, his blood turned cold. There, illuminated by the moonlight, was Mickey Mouse, its gaze fixed on him with a malevolent intensity. Frozen in fear, Max could only watch as the creature began to climb the walls of the cottage, its movements eerily silent. He wanted to scream, to warn his family, but fear had rendered him mute. Mickey Mouse reached the roof, its whistling now a chilling lullaby that seeped into the cottage, filling the air with dread. The creature was preparing to strike, to claim its prey and satiate its never-ending hunger. In the darkness of the night, the Carter family lay vulnerable, unaware of the nightmare that hovered just above them, waiting for the moment to unleash its terror. Mickey Mouse, a curse born from the depths of the woods, was about to descend upon them, its presence a blight upon the once peaceful summer retreat. Part 3. The Unseen Terror. In the dead of night, the Carter family's cottage, once a haven of warmth and laughter, now trembled under an unseen malice. Mickey Mouse, perched atop the roof, let out a soft, menacing chuckle that sent shivers down Max's spine as he peeked from his window. The creature's eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight, reflecting a hunger that was as ancient as it was terrifying. Max, paralyzed with fear, finally found his voice and let out a scream that pierced the stillness of the night. His parents, jolted awake by his cry, rushed to his side. John, seeing the terror in his son's eyes, looked out the window but saw nothing but the dense shadows of the trees swaying in the wind. "What did you see, Max?" John asked, his voice laced with concern. "There's something on the roof," Max stammered, his words tumbling out in a panic. John and Eliza exchanged worried glances, unsure whether to attribute their son's terror to a nightmare or something more sinister. Eliza comforted Max, trying to soothe his frayed nerves, while John decided to investigate. Grabbing a flashlight, John cautiously stepped outside, his every sense heightened. The night was eerily quiet, the usual chorus of crickets and night creatures conspicuously absent. As he shone the light towards the roof, nothing seemed amiss, but the feeling of being watched lingered oppressively in the air. Back inside, Lily, awakened by the commotion, clung to her mother. Her eyes were wide with fear, and she whispered, "The whistling man is here." Eliza's heart sank. Lily's words, combined with Max's terror, left her with a dreadful realization that perhaps the local legends held more truth than they had believed. Meanwhile, John, still outside, felt a cold breeze brush past him. He turned around just in time to see a shadow dart into the woods. His pulse quickened and a cold dread settled in his heart. Something was very wrong. Back in the cottage, the family huddled together, trying to make sense of the night's events. Eliza recounted the local tales of Mickey Mouse, a creature of folklore she had dismissed as mere superstition until now. "The stories say it's a creature that was once a man, cursed to roam the woods," Eliza explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's said to be drawn to life and warmth, feeding on the fear of its victims." The family decided they could not stay in the cottage any longer. They needed to leave at first light to escape the clutches of the unseen terror that stalked them. But as they planned their departure, the whistling returned, a haunting melody that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Outside, Mickey Mouse circled the cottage, its form barely visible, a ghostly apparition in the night. It relished the fear it instilled in the hearts of its prey, drawing strength from their terror. The night wore on, a tense vigil as the family awaited the dawn. Every creak of the cottage, every rustle of the leaves outside sent their hearts racing. The once peaceful summer retreat had become a place of nightmare, a trap from which they desperately needed to escape. As the first light of dawn filtered through the trees, the whistling faded, retreating into the depths of the woods. The creature had vanished, but the fear it left behind lingered, a dark cloud over the once tranquil Lake Eldridge. The family packed their belongings in haste, eager to leave the nightmare behind. But as they prepared to depart, they couldn't shake the feeling that the eyes of Mickey Mouse were still upon them, watching from the shadows, waiting for the night to fall again. Part 4. The Escape and the Hunt. The first rays of dawn brought little relief to the Carter family. Their night at the cottage had been one of terror and vigilance, marked by the haunting presence of Mickey Mouse. With the light of day, they hurriedly packed their belongings, the fear of the night still palpable in their hurried movements. As they loaded the car, John couldn't help but glance warily at the woods that bordered the cottage. The trees, which had seemed so inviting upon their arrival, now stood like silent sentinels, hiding the horrors that lurked within. Eliza, holding Lily and Max close, ushered them into the car. The children's eyes were wide with fear, and they kept looking back at the cottage as if expecting the creature to emerge at any moment. John took one last look around, ensuring they hadn't left anything behind, when a chill ran down his spine. There, on the ground near the cottage door, were a series of small clawed footprints, circling the house and then leading back into the woods. The reality of their nightmare was etched into the ground, a tangible proof that Mickey Mouse was more than just a figment of their imagination. The drive back to the city was silent, each member of the family lost in their own thoughts, processing the events of the night. The once peaceful retreat had turned into a scene from a horror story, one that they were fortunate to have survived. But their ordeal was far from over. As they reached their home in the city, a creeping sense of unease began to take hold. The feeling of being watched, which they had felt at the cottage, had followed them. It was as if the creature from the woods had marked them, its presence an invisible shroud that clung to their every step. John tried to rationalize the events, to convince himself and his family that they were safe now, far from the woods and the creature. But the haunting whistling melody they had heard in the night seemed to echo in their minds, a sinister lullaby that refused to be silenced. As night approached, the family's anxiety grew. They double-checked all the locks on the doors and windows, and John even went so far as to install a new security system. But the fear that something might be lurking outside, waiting for the cover of darkness, was overwhelming. That night, as they tried to rest, the sound returned, the faint, eerie whistling, drifting in through the closed windows, its melody more insistent than before. It was then they realized Mickey Mouse was not bound to the woods of Lake Eldridge. It had followed them, its curse reaching beyond the confines of its forested realm. In the dead of night, the family huddled together, fearing what might come with the darkness. The creature had marked them, and now it seemed it was hunting them, a predator stalking its prey with chilling patience and cunning. The city, with its bustling streets and neon lights, offered no refuge from the shadow that had descended upon their lives. Mickey Mouse, a creature of legend and nightmare, was now a part of their reality, a sinister force that had breached the boundaries of their once safe and ordinary world. Part 5. The Final Night. The Carter family's home, once a sanctuary of love and laughter, had become a fortress of fear. As darkness fell over the city, the eerie whistling that had haunted them since their encounter at Lake Eldridge grew louder, no longer a distant echo, but a clear, menacing tune that seemed to envelop their home. John and Eliza, with Lily and Max tucked away in a makeshift safe room, scoured the house, ensuring every possible entry point was secured. The security system, installed in a rush of fear, beeped quietly in the background, a small comfort against the unknown terror that lurked outside. The night was oppressively quiet, the usual sounds of the city seemingly muted under a blanket of fear. The family huddled together, listening intently for any sign of Mickey Mouse. The creature had become a relentless shadow, an entity that refused to be left behind in the woods. As the clock ticked past midnight, the whistling stopped abruptly, replaced by a silence that was even more terrifying. John peered through the window, his eyes scanning the darkness for any movement. The street was deserted, the only movement the gentle sway of the trees in the night breeze. Suddenly, the security alarm blared, shattering the silence. The family jumped, their hearts racing in terror. John rushed to the control panel, his hands shaking as he tried to pinpoint the breach. The system indicated a window on the ground floor, one he was sure he had secured. Grabbing a baseball bat, John moved towards the window, Eliza close behind. They reached the living room, where the curtains fluttered slightly, the window ajar. How it had been opened was a mystery, one that sent chills down their spines. The room was bathed in moonlight, casting eerie shadows across the floor. And then they saw it. A small, hunched figure standing in the corner, its form grotesque and twisted, half man, half mouse. Mickey Mouse had entered their home, its eyes glowing with malevolence. The creature moved swiftly, with an unnatural agility. John swung the bat, but the creature dodged, its movements a blur. It lunged at him, its claws extended, a hiss escaping its twisted lips. Eliza screamed, pulling the children back. The creature turned its attention towards them, its gaze filled with a hunger that was both primal and chilling. In that moment, John realized they couldn't run from the creature. They had to confront it. With a surge of adrenaline, he attacked, fighting to protect his family from the nightmarish entity that had invaded their home. The struggle was fierce and desperate. Mickey Mouse, though small, was incredibly strong and fast, its body a contorted mass of sinew and fur. But John fought with the strength of a father protecting his family, his every blow fueled by fear and love. In the end, it was the creature's own ferocity that led to its downfall. As it lunged for Lily, John managed to strike it with a fatal blow, sending it crashing through the window into the night. The family rushed to the window, watching as the creature lay still on the ground outside, its reign of terror finally at an end. As they watched, the creature's form seemed to dissolve into the night air, disappearing as if it had never been. The night was still once more, the whistling a distant memory. The Carter family embraced, their relief palpable. They had faced their nightmare and emerged victorious, but the scars of their ordeal would linger. As dawn broke, the city awoke, unaware of the terror that had unfolded in the quiet house on the street. The Carters, though safe, knew that their lives would never be the same. Mickey Mouse, a creature of folklore and fear, had become a part of their story, a dark chapter in their family history. The woods of Lake Eldridge remained, silent and watchful, a reminder of the mysteries and terrors that lurk in the shadows, waiting for the night to fall.